Hello, this is AMET 104 lecture recording week 5.3. So up until now, we looked at so many different types of savings investments and how the interests work and but basically how the money works in real life. But so far, we only looked at how the interest accumulates in investors' point of view. In other words, that you or the account holder, you're making investments to your account, and we found how much money or how much interest that you'll yield in the future. So today we're going to talk about the other way around. We're going to talk about some debt. So this is chapter 10.5, and that's consumer debt. There are so many different types of debt. Most people usually have credit card debt that they carry over, and there are many different types. But today we're only really going to look at the installment loan. So installment loan debt. So installment loan debt is a purposeful debt, and it's purposeful, and oftentimes it's organized. This is when the borrower pays the loan plus the interest back to the lender in equal installments paid at regular intervals. Over the life of the loan. So when the last installment loan is paid, we say the loan is paid off. This process is called amortization. And we often say that a loan is being amortized over a certain length of time. So the benefit of the installment loan is that it typically has really low APR. So the benefit, so installment loan typically have much lower APRs than other types of loans. So oftentimes we call this type of loan as financing. So you finance a house or you finance a car. So basically, installment loan is you are purposefully planning your payment plan as you take out the loan. And instead of paying the full amount at the end of the term, you are simply making a monthly payment or the yearly payment, weekly payment, bi-weekly payment, whatever it is, for a promised interval of time. You are paying a small amount of the debt each time, and over the period of the loan. And once the last one is paid off, that is called you paid off everything. And yes, as we just mentioned, these type of loans have very low APR in general. So before we do anything, let's talk about the formula. So amortization formula is given as M equals to capital P multiplied by the small p multiplied by 1 plus the small p to the power of the capital T divided by 1 plus the small p to the power of t minus 1. So here, we already know a lot of these things, but let's still define things. So here M is the monthly payment. And here P, the capital P, is the principal. And here the lowercase p is defined as R over 12, where the small r is APR expressed in decimal. And the capital T is the total number of months. Or in other words, the total number of payments that we're talking about. So this formula basically gives you the monthly payment that you have to make over the period of time. So given the principal, meaning the total money you are borrowing, if you plug everything in the formula, this basically outputs the monthly payment that you will have to pay over the T month in this, or the T times. So let's put that to the real life example. Let's start with an example. So example, so let's say you found your first car. You really like. And you negotiated. a good deal with the dealer. So, I mean, this could be any type of cars, but for the sake of the problem, I'm gonna come up with any random number. 9.5. So let's say that's your negotiated price. And let's say this is including taxes and fees. Just for the sake of the problem, this makes the problem easier. And in addition, the car manufacturer is offering a special discount or a special promotion, let's say, where you can either choose between the two options. So let's say option one, you get the $2,000 manufacturer rebate. But if you decide to go with the manufacturer's rebate, you have to go with the dealer's financing rate. With the dealer's going rate, let's say 6.48% APR for 60 months. Or the second option is you opt out of the dealer's rebate, but instead you can go with your bank's special financing special financing at 1.2% APR. So this is also for 60 months. So you now have two different options. So you're simply, let's say, taking out a loan. So we're talking about no down payment here. We're taking out all these extraneous factors just to show you the calculation. So in this scenario, if you are taking out a loan of $23,995 with the two options, the first option is where the dealer offers you $2,000 rebate after the purchase, and as in return, you have to go with their department, finance department, and their current going rate is 6.48% APR for 60 months. On the other hand, if you opt out of the manufacturer rebate, you don't get that $2,000 right now, but with your bank, current APR is 1.2%, which is a lot lower. So we know that lower APR yields less interest, and because 1.2 is significantly lower than 6.48%, obviously option 2 may sound like a good deal, but at the same time, option 1 is offering $2,000 manufacturer rebate. That's a significant amount of money. So let's actually put this into calculation and see which is a better option. Because with the $2,000 rebates, you're really paying, you only really need to take out a loan of $21,995 as opposed to $23,995. So let's do the calculation. So for option 1, so if you take the $2,000 rebate, you now have the principal 95 minus the $2,000 because that's rebate in this case basically works like a discount. So the principal, or in other words, the total money owed is now $21,995. But now the APR is going to be 0.0648. That's in decimal, which this implies that your periodic interest or the monthly interest is actually 0.0648, and you divide this by 12. And that gives you 0.0054. And the total number of installments or total number of months that you're owing this for is 60 months. So we actually now have everything that we know, we need to know. So let me rewrite this formula down here for you. So the monthly payment for the formula is given as such. So M equals to the principal multiplied by 0.0054. Sorry. The periodic interest multiplied by 1 plus the periodic interest to the power of the total number of payments and the 1 plus the periodic interest minus 1, like this. So let's plug in everything that we know. So we know that in this case, with the option 1, the money owed is $21,995. And since the periodic interest is 0.0054, and you're multiplying with 1.0054 to the power of 60, and you divide that by 1 plus 0.0054 to the power of 60 minus 1. So by now, I'm sure you know how to use the calculator properly. And if you do, this would output the $430.15. So this means that if you decide to go with the manufacturer's rebate, you will be paying $430.15 every month for 60 months to pay off everything. So let's now look at the option 2. So option 2, everything stays the same, but the And this with the option 2, you do not have any manufacturer rebate, so you're actually paying the full price for the car. And your APR is instead very low. It's 1.2%, so it's in this case 0.012. So this implies that your monthly interest is 0.012 divided by 12. So that's 0.001. And the total number of payments is the same in this case. By plugging everything you know here, you have 23,995 multiplied by 0.001 multiplied by 1.001 to the power of 60 divided by 1.001 to the power of 60 minus 1. And by plugging into the calculator, we should be able to conclude that this would come out to 412.23. So what does that tell you? That tells you that by going with option 2, in other words, refusing the manufacturer rebate in this case and going with the better APR, even without the rebate, you actually pay less each month. Sure, someone may argue that it's only $18 difference, $18 difference for each month, which really isn't too much. But if you take the $18 and multiply by the total terms, the total number of payments, in other words, this is how much you'll pay more if you go with the manufacturer rebate, is actually over $1,000. So if you really think about it, paying over $1,000 on a $23,000 car, I don't think that's a good deal. So even though for each month it may not look like a big deal, at the end you are really paying over $1,000 more if you decide to go with option 1 in this case. So let's now look at the another example. So another scenario that you would use the this type of loan payment is the mortgage. So oftentimes, some people would prefer to buy the car outright without having to take out a loan. But when it comes to houses, that's not always the case. A lot of the times, most of the time, they really take out the loan. And let's talk about mortgage. So mortgage is the same way. I'm not going to go over a simple example where you have to find the monthly payments for the mortgage. But instead, I'm going to come up with a really a different type of example where it's a little more complex. So example. So suppose you bought a house. So suppose you bought a house, or let's say financed a house at, so let's say in this case it was 4.8% APR for 30 years. And let's say the cost of the house was $180,000. So let's first find out your monthly payments. So your monthly payment, using the formula, the M equals to $180,000 multiplied by, in this case, we know that, before we do anything, we know that APR is 4.8%. So the monthly interest will be 0.048 divided by 12. And that is 0.004. And the total number of payments is for 30 years for 12 months for each year. And that's going to be 360 months. So now knowing this, let's plug it back in here. So we have 0.004 multiplied by 1.004 to the power of 360, and you're dividing everything by 1.004 to the power of 360 minus 1. So by plugging this into the calculator, you should be able to find that this is $944.40. So this implies that if you buy a house that costs $180,000 and you take out a mortgage at the APR of 4.8% for 30 years, this is how much you have to pay each month. Now, so suppose after 30 months of payments, so let's say after 30 months of payment, let's say the offer got better, see the APR got better. So let's say you received an offer to refinance your mortgage at 3.9% APR. So in this case, the question here is this a good offer? Do you take this offer or not? So obviously the APR is lower, but you should understand that this amount, the $944.40 that you're paying, already includes the interest that you owe. So meaning that if you refinance, that means that you're putting another interest on top of this, which doesn't sound like a good deal. But let's actually put that into calculation. So first of all, before we do any calculation, we have to find how much we still owe. So let's compute so there's a second step. So we have to compute the balance on your current mortgage. After the 30-month payment. So 30 monthly payments. So simply how you do this is by letting the monthly payment, because this is how much we're paying, of $944.40. And we also know that the APR was 4.8%. So, which means that the periodic interest is 0.004. And lastly, since out of the 360 month, we paid off the 30 month of it, so we still have to pay 330 month. Let me actually rewrite that. So we get from 360 minus 30 because we paid off 30 already. So here, what we're trying to do is find the capital P, to find the balance, or in other words, to find the money that you still owe. How you do this is you're using the same formula, but knowing the monthly payment, the rate, and the number of payments, we're simply solving for the principal. So that'll give you the $944.40 equals to this unknown amount of payment that we still owe. And you're simply plugging everything that we know to the power of 330 now. And you divide it by 1.004 to the power of 330 minus 1. So we've done something similar before. How do you find P? So you first compute whatever is in the bracket, so to compute the bracket. And divide the bracket on each side. Then you should be able to find that your current balance, or in other words, the money that you still have to pay off, is $172,863.07. So this P that we just found is your current balance. In other words, this is the money that you still owe, you still have to pay back over the period of 330 months. So now that we know this number, we know everything that we know to calculate if the financing makes sense, refinancing makes sense. So refinancing in this case, knowing that the balance that we still owe is $172,863, and we also know that we still have 330 month to pay off, and the new APR is given as, in this case, 3.9% APR. So 3.9%, so that's 0.039. And by finding the monthly interest, that's going to be 0.039 divided by 12, and that is 0.00325. So let's put this into calculation again. So if you are trying to find the monthly payment now, And since we already used the word M up there for the initial monthly payment, let's say this is the M prime, just to distinguish the two. So your new monthly payment is now, knowing that the money that you owe is $172,863.07, your your monthly interest is 0.00325, so 0.00325 multiplied by 1.00325, and you're exponentiating by the 330. And you divide everything by 1.00325 to the power of 330, and you take away 1. So now this is a simple calculation, and by putting that into calculator, you should be able to find that this is $854.75. And this is the monthly payment for the $330 month. So as we can see, if you decide to refinance your house in this case, you actually end up with lower payment for the same period of time. So at the end, this works out for you. So oftentimes, if there is a better rate, it's better to see if it makes sense, and oftentimes it would make sense, and this is how you calculate it. And simply by multiplying the 330 on here, this will tell you how much money that you would owe to the bank, and you can simply find the difference between this and the money that you would have owed if you did not finance it. So I think today's class was a little short, but I think I'm going to cut it here. And next class, we're going to go over a couple of different examples using this amortization involving mortgage, car financing, and also refinancing, and so on. So, well, thank you for joining the class, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.